I'll hand over to Alex Trujillo. Well, he's our global senior sales manager and been with FlightScope for a long time, so he knows everything that you need to know. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Tamsin. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Alex Trujillo. I've been with FlightScope. Actually, next month will be 10 years, and I lead the sales department, and I also represent the company on the PGA Tour. So I'm gonna go through some information about our units. I'm gonna give you guys some real world examples of the data that we provide. Now, we do provide a lot of data, so I probably won't be able to go into every single data piece. But if you have any questions, feel free to put a comment in the chat box, and then Tamsin will alert me, and I will answer all the questions that I can. So, for those of you who weren't part of the first session, I'll go through just a quick overview of where FlightScope comes from. So as Tamsin said, we were founded in South Africa in Stellenbosch in 1989, initially in the defense industry, tracking missiles and projectiles. And then shortly after that, Henry Johnson, our founder and CEO, decided to get into the sports industry. So we did some stuff with cricket, got into tennis, golf, baseball, softball, athletics. We do some stuff with NASA and some SpaceX stuff. And so we just have a lot of experience in tracking moving objects or projectiles. Now, golf is probably one of our bigger divisions because, as you guys are aware, technology in golf is it's a key part of the game, and it's a key part of player improvement and pretty essential. So we have a portfolio of products. Our top of the line product is what we call our FlightScope X3. Some of you might have it. Actually, let me unblur my background so you guys can see it. Let me see if I can do that quickly here. Well, I don't know how to do it, but let me see if I can zoom it in. Guess it's not going to show, but it's the bigger unit. I mean, you guys have probably seen it. Actually, there's a little piece of it. So that's our X3. That's our top of the line model. That is what we call a full tracking radar. That is going to track the ball from launch till land on a flat surface, and it gives over 50 data parameters. The next in the line of our products would be our Mevo Plus. This one's very popular. This Mevo Plus, you can have 16 data parameters, and then we give the user the option of adding what we call the Pro package, which adds an additional 11 parameters to include some of your face and path numbers, and then now the newly released information of face impact. So those two products you can get that information with. And then the last but not least would be our Mevo. I don't have one with me today, but it's our smaller product, connects via Bluetooth and gives you 8 data parameters, mostly just ball data. It does give club speed, but the rest is all ball data. So that's our portfolio of products in golf. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to just kind of take you guys into a little dive of what our applications look like and how you as a teacher and fitter could really use these tools to help your business, to help your game, and to help your customers. And let me share this here. Okay. Tamsin, can you give me a verbal if you can see that?
All good.
Okay, so this is our FS Golf app. And this application allows you to connect to our products, and you can do several things with them. So you can do a full swing session, which is where you would, you'd hit shots as you would on the range throughout your bag. We have a swing training session you can do to basically speed train or to train on your pass. So these sessions, swing training, is done without a golf ball. You swing your club or your training device, such as super speed sticks or the stack system. You swing those products in front of the unit, and the unit will give you club speed, horizontal swing plane, and vertical swing plane. So whether you're speed training or you're working on a specific drill to work on your path, you can do that without having the ball. We have the review session function, which is where you're going to go to see all of your data that's been collected. I'll actually go in there and show you some information. And then we have our chipping, putting, and what we call our challenges. So I'm actually going to take you guys into a review session. And I just hit some balls earlier this morning, and we're going to dive into some data. Now, I had a question here prior to the event, which I will answer as I'm going through here. But the question was, what would be the optimal numbers for face to path or face to target? So as I dive through this information, I'm going to answer that question. And Tamsin, if you need to stop me if you have any questions, please feel free. So give you a quick overview of what our application looks like. This is FS Golf. So you have your traditional driving range screen. We give the user the ability to adjust their bottom bar, which is where all our information is stored. And then we also allow them to put up to 6 data parameters for quick reference on the right-hand side of the screen. So for example, I'm going to add carry distance. I just tap my bottom bar. I'm going to add, let's do smash, let's do club path, let's do face to path, let's do angle of attack, and my last but not least, face impact. Little toe ball there. So we give you the options to customize your software as you deem fit, and then we'll give you different perspective views that you can use. So this would be our perspective. This is our side, and you can change some of the graphics here, and then our top view. Top view, you can do a grouping for a single shot, or you can do all clubs. This screen in particular, I really like, especially when you're working on your players with gappings, because you can have the player hit, lob wedge through driver, and then the grouping screen is going to color code each club, so that from a bird's eye view, you can actually see what the groupings look like for each club. Are the gaps correct? And is there any inefficiencies in the gap? So then you can maybe hone in on, hey, you got too much gap between your 5 and 4 iron. We need to work on that. Maybe we need to do some equipment changing or adjustments. We have a dashboard screen. This is the screen that's going to give you all of the data parameters in a session. And you as the user, teacher, or fitter have the ability of adjusting this screen to either have all the data, or you can actually select what data you want to display on this screen. So if I go into data order, I have the ability of hiding certain data parameters, moving the order, or at the end of the day, I can reset the order, and then I'll be back to this, or what we call our default screen. And after you hit a shot, this data gets repopulated in real time. We have a table screen with what we call on the bottom averages and deviances for each individual club. In this particular session, I hit 2 clubs. I hit a 9 iron, 7 iron. And so if I go to a summary now, I'll get a summary of those 2 clubs averages for every individual data parameter. So as you can see here, my average 9 iron goes 136 yards. My average 7 iron goes 159 yards. And then I can scroll over and look at some more information. So my average path with a 9 iron is 8 right, when my average with a 7 iron is 6 left. Now you can actually customize how you sort these columns. So we give you the option of going into our settings. And for example, if I wanted to see club angles from left to right first, I can adjust that, and then my table gets readjusted. So you can adjust that as you deem fit, and then you can also share this with your players. Now, one of the greatest features that we have is that our systems combine video. So you can, not only can you record video using the actual units themselves, but you can actually connect multiple wireless devices to use as a video source. So in this particular session, I had my iPad, my operating iPad, which is where I have my application on, and then I had my iPhone set up as what we call a multicam device. And I can have up to 2 multicam devices. So I can have my operating. I had 2 multicam devices and even my radar cameras for a total of 4 videos. In this particular session, I had 2 views, and you're going to see something that I'm going to show you, which is what we call our AR. So with my phone, I took a video and we put an AR trajectory on that video. So you can see not only the trajectory, but you can see several data points without that trajectory, which I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to go into my video. And so what you see here, this is a replayed shot that I took this morning. So the down the line view is my multicam source. The sort of face on view was from my iPad. And then now I can replay this shot. Let me slow it down a bit. So I can replay my shot from both angles. And on the down the line view, you're going to see that AR. So that is a live trajectory on the video, which gives me my ball speed and my height. I can also bring in my face impact location. So where exactly did I hit this on the face? And that was a little bit of a toe draw. And as you can see there, I can bring my face impact into this video. But what's really neat about all this is I can quickly hit more, I can hit share, and I can go directly into any of my social media platforms. As you'll see here, it's going to prepare the video and I can send it right out. So really, really cool feature. You can even airdrop it directly into your student's cellular device. And as I mentioned, you can have up to 4 sources. As you can see here, you can split screen it. So, you know, some of you might have a studio where you have your camera set up, or you might have Swing Catalyst or whatever you have. You might have V1. What's really neat about this integration that we have with video is that you can take the unit outdoors and don't have to drag all the equipment with you. All you really need is you need your FlightScope unit, you need an iPad and an iPhone, and you're ready to go. You basically have an outdoor studio in your hands. Then we have the club analysis screen. Now this club analysis screen will show you a detailed view of how your club is working through the strike zone, and we'll also show you some information on your D plane. So here's a side view, so you can see, for example, club path, face to path, horizontal swing plane. I draw the ball a lot, so you guys are looking at that skewed path. These were shots that I hit this morning. So you have the different views. I also have a 2D view, so I can see, for example, face to target, face to path, dynamic loft, and then last but not least, spin axis. And then now with the new addition of our face impact, I can actually see where I struck the ball on that particular shot. So that one was a little toe bound, that was heel bound, that was closer to the center, that was a little toey, that was a little center. So kind of my heat map is kind of all over the place. If I go to the map, I actually get a good indication of where all those shots actually happened. So this I think is not only great for teaching, but for fitters, this is going to be huge because now you can see if changes that you're making in equipment, in shafts, or even in loft and lie, if it's changing where the strike is happening, especially for the better player.
Alex.
Yes.
Sorry, I have a quick question for you. So the D plane data you were showing, that would be available with the Pro package and would obviously be available with the X3.
X3 and Pro package, correct. Mevo Plus Pro package.
Sure. And then
go ahead.
The impact location is also standard with the X3, but now as a new feature, as an add-on for Pro package users on the Mevo Plus. I just want to make it clear to people like what's extras and what's standard. Yeah.
Yeah, so X3, you get everything. There's no extra cost for X3 user. Everything that I'm showing you, you have. For Mevo Plus users, if you want the Pro package data or the D plane data, you have to purchase the Pro package. If you want face impact, that is an additional add-on as well that you would purchase to have this available.
Cool. And while you're on the screen of face impact location, Matthew was asking, did I get it right, Matthew? Yes, he was asking what's the accuracy of face impact location, and obviously no stickers, tape, etc. needed.
No, so I was trying to do a video that you guys can see. Like I put some foot spray on the club, hit one, and then show you face impact. But I was by myself this morning. I couldn't do it. I needed some help. So Tamsin, you could potentially share some videos with them of some of the demos I did at the PGA show this year, and you guys can actually see live demo where I sprayed the face with foot powder. I hit a shot, and then we compared what the radar reported versus the impact location. And it's very, very accurate. And I must say this, some of our competitors have had this information for probably a couple years now, and we decided to hold off on it until we 100% knew that it would be very accurate, because it's not easy to do. And we only were able to do it through a special technique that we use called fusion tracking. And that is a patented technology that we have, which basically uses radar processing with synchronized image processing. And we basically use the best of both worlds. We use radar tracking and that image processing, and we fuse it together, hence the name fusion tracking, to be able to see some of this information. So, we really took our time to make this as accurate as possible, because obviously we've used some of the competitor stuff and we knew that it was lacking in accuracy on specifically at face impact. So we are very, very happy with how it's come out, and very excited about this face impact release. And if you guys have the systems, please do the test yourself. It is very accurate, even to the point that we give the user the ability to adjust the actual head shape of the club. So for example, if you're hitting a blade and maybe one of your clients is hitting a game improvement iron, the height and width of that club is going to be different. And what you'll see on the screen here is that we have a width and height of 4 and 2, 4 inches and 2 inches. Maybe your club is a different size, so that the location might look like it's off. So we give you a calibration screen where you can actually go in, and not only can you adjust where it's being struck on the face, but you can adjust what the height and width are of the actual graphic that you see on the club. And that is what makes it even that much more accurate, because you can literally calibrate it to the size of your individual club. So, that's face impact.
Thanks,
And
Alex.
then,
Sorry,
yep.
I wanted to mention one other thing, is that when we're talking about accuracy, I think like everything, the setup is really important. And so if you're ever getting numbers, face impact location, or just general numbers that you're not confident with, we have a customer care team that sits right here in South Africa, in Cape Town, English and Afrikaans speaking. We'll help you out, whatever you need, but definitely contact us before thinking that the unit, there's something wrong with the unit. So I wanted to mention that. And then we were talking about D-plane. BP Yun was asking, will you be able to connect gears with the FlightScope?
We don't have an integration with gears at the moment. I don't know. Potentially you could, if you're running gears, I think we do have an integration where you can pull our into their software. I'd have to ask Michael Neff on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I can get you that answer. I do want to go back to the face impact and the setup that Tamsin, that you were referring to. We do have some requirements for face impact on your lighting conditions. So we require at least 300 lumens of light at your hitting location, which is really not that much. If you're outdoors, you're never going to have a problem with lighting, because the natural light is enough, unless it's like extremely, extremely dark. But indoors, you have to have 300 lumens. The application is smart enough to tell you if you hit a shot and you don't get face impact, it will tell you whether you have an insufficient light condition. And then at that point in time, you can make the necessary adjustments. So it will indicate to you whether or not you have the proper lighting. Last but not least, yep.
Thanks. Sorry, you can't see my face, so you can't see me speaking to you. But I just wanted to mention, so the videos I'll send from the PGA show, we were not in optimal light conditions and we were still getting accurate numbers. But obviously our recommendation is 300 lumens to get the best, the most accuracy. Okay, that's all my questions for now, Alex. I'll leave you for a bit.
Okay, no problem. And then last but not least, I want to talk about what we call our charts. Now, these are graphs that are very exclusive to FlightScope. We've been providing these for a very long time. What I can tell you is I spent a lot of time on the PGA Tour working with players, is specific, obviously on their numbers, but specifically on making sure that they were playing the best equipment to optimize their game, specifically shafts. Obviously, most of them have club deals, so they're not going to be switching around clubs, manufacturers, but they will definitely make a lot of changes to their shafts and to their setups. And so with these charts, what we provide is something called speed profile, and we have what we call an acceleration profile. Let me bring up that's interesting. So this is your speed profile. I actually just found a little bug here on my software. And then then you have an acceleration profile. I'll bring it up now. I'll go into another session. This session for some reason didn't populate it. But what these graphs do is, what you're seeing here on this screen is what we call the speed profile. So you're looking on the left-hand side of the screen, you're looking at the club coming into what we call zero Doppler, which is about hip height on the downswing, or P6. And the club is gaining speed towards impact. So you'll see that the graph is miles per hour over distance. On the bottom side of the graph, that distance, 0 is impact. So everything that's negative is the club head moving towards impact, and then everything that's positive is the club after impact. And now you'll see a little gap after impact. That is because we filter that area because there's a lot of noise happening at impact. You have the impact interval, you have the T flying, you might have divot flying. So if we were to draw that graph, it would just be very noisy. So we filter out about the first 1.5 feet, and then we show you that the radar is still tracking the club after that. I'm going to switch my session here quickly just so I can see if I can pull it up on this session. I'm using the face impact stuff isn't released yet, so I'm using a beta version, and I just found a bug on that one session. So, but you can see it here now on the top of the screen. So you see speed profile and you see acceleration profile. Now, the acceleration profile is probably the screen I use the most on tour, and I'll give you an explanation why. This graph shows you G forces on the left side over distance. So what you're seeing here is the club head towards impact, measuring the G's, or the acceleration of the club. And you see what we call a pretty linear profile. This profile that you see here, this line, is what you would want to see from a tour player that is properly fit. And I'll dive into a little bit why. So if you have, let's say you have a very high club head speed player, maybe a long driver, and you give them a ladies flex or a senior flex shaft, a softer shaft, and they take a full swing with it, this profile would be extremely erratic. It'll have a kind of a hump at the top. It'll come down, and then it'll have this massive hook towards the bottom right before impact, because obviously they're applying a lot of force and speed, and the shaft kind of can't catch up to the forces applied to it. So the profile will be really erratic. It wouldn't look this linear. As you start to add weight and stiffness and torque to that shaft, to that club, the profile starts to become more linear, eventually to the point where you'll get a graph that looks like this. But the opposite effect can happen if you add too much stiffness and weight. Then the profile could start, actually, once you start getting towards impact, the profile can start going downward into what we would call negative acceleration. And so there you would know, okay, I've probably gone too much. I've taken acceleration from this player. So most of our clientele is going to be the average golfer. tour players, the percentage is very, very little. So most of the people that we're going to see are the average golfer, you know, maybe the junior or the senior that don't have a lot of speed. So most of the times what you're trying to do with this graph is you're actually trying to get people to have what we call that fish hook. And I will have Tamsin share with you guys what we call our reference charts after this call. And in those reference charts, you'll be able to see these profiles that I'm talking about. But this profile that looks like a fish hook, it kind of comes down and then right before impacted fish hooks. If I have a player that needs speed, that's what I'm trying to put into their hands, because I want them not only to have a little bit more launch, but I want that club head to have a little bit more snap at the bottom so they can get a little more ball speed. And all of this, obviously, it's, you know, the more you use it and the more you practice with it, the better you will get. But what I can tell you is that every player that I helped on tour that I used this profile with, I walked away knowing 100% that I put them into the proper equipment, that they, as long as they liked the ball flight and I got the profile that I wanted to see, I walked away knowing with 100% confidence that that was a good fit. So it just really gave me a lot of, you know, I didn't have to second guess myself when I walked away that they were going to be in something that wasn't going to be beneficial to their game. So I highly recommend you guys dive into this deeper. And if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to reach out. We also have what we call an e-learning platform where you can actually sign up and take some classes that we have online that will take you through some of this as well. So I'm going to go back to, I'm actually going to go back to the original session that we started, that I hit some shots on, and I want to talk a little bit about optimal numbers for face and path. So if you have a little bit of understanding on the D plane, which is, you know, comprised of your club path, your face to path, your angle of attack, your dynamic loft, and then your two swing planes, vertical and horizontal. In the industry, you know, it's always trying to, people are always trying to say, what are the optimal numbers? Like, what should a player chase? And from my experience, I have never guided a player to chase a specific number. The only thing I've guided them to is to understand what their numbers look like when they're hitting it the best, especially with tour players. When tour players are hitting it the best, that's when I wanted to collect data, because I wanted to be able to have a baseline or a tether of when we went down a rabbit hole and the swing got out of whack. I wanted to be able to be tethered to that baseline session to where we can go back and say, hey, when you were hitting it your best, when you were hitting your best cut shots, this is what your face and path look like. This is what your angle of attack look like. And so we would always, like I said, we'd be tethered to that information. But it's great with the amateur player as well, because you can not only help get a baseline for where they're currently at, but you can help them start to understand as you move them through your program, how are they improving? You know, is the pass getting better? Is there more consistency? But I want to answer the question about what optimal would be. So club path and face to path. I don't use face to target much. I always use face to path because I know my reference is always the club path. With face to target, you have to make sure that your radar is aligned specifically to a target and that your player is hitting to that target. So, you know, because most players don't really set up correctly to their targets, I tend to use face to path the most, and it's easier for me to explain to the user. So the rule of thumb is that you want your face to path to always be half of whatever your path is. So for example, on this particular shot that you guys see here, and everyone can see the data on the right hand side of the screen, correct?
Yep.
Tam, can you see it? Okay. So my club path was on this particular shot was 10.6 to the right. So for me to have a shot, a push draw, I would want to have my face to path be half of that. So I would want my face to path to be 5 degrees left of my path. So what would happen with a center strike is that ball would start right and would draw right back to the target. obviously without any of the other variables in the environment or anything like that, on a center strike. On this particular shot, my face to path was 9. So my face was too shut to the path. And I also hit it on the toe. So I induced some gear effect, some toe gear effect. So that ball curved more than what I wanted it to. So if you use that general rule of thumb, your face being half your path, your ball will always work back to the target. And the reason why I don't like getting a player into a specific number, like let's say 4 right on the path, is because everyone's different. Okay, I've seen Bryson DeChambeau, he's 6 to 8 degrees right. Rory, 6 to 8. Sometimes he can even get out to 10s. Then on the other side, cut players, right? They'll be, like a Bubba, he'll be, well, he's lefty, but if you were a righty, he would be, 4 to 5 degrees left. But what they all are great at doing is having the path. So that path will always be half, the face will always be half of their path. And that's how they get those consistent trajectories. Now, what I recommend is that the path is never in the double digits. So like this 10 is not good. And the reason why that's not good is because if I square the face to that club path, that ball is so far right, I'm probably out of bounds. I'll give you guys a little real world example. I was working with a player, a tour player at Lake Nona. Very big cut player, loved to hit that power cut. And I was there to help them with a ball fitting. So I wasn't there to really give any information on the club, just giving ball numbers. And I noticed in the session that his club path was like 13 degrees left. And then, yeah, he would hit these nice, like 300-yard carry drives, always working back to the target. But I was like, man, this club path is excessive. I was like, that can be a problem. So, I didn't say nothing much. I just kind of kept it in the back of my head. And that player ended up, this is a few years back, and that player ended up playing in the final round, in the final match of the WGC match play in Austin. And I remember that this was probably 2 weeks after I had worked with him. And I remember he got on a tee. Now he's obviously under pressure, under the gun. And guess what happens? He matched the face to that path. That ball went OB left. And then the rest was history. He ended up losing the match. So you don't want the path to be that excessive in either direction. I would say anything, like 8 down in either direction is good. But as far as honing in on a specific number, I'm not a big fan of that. In my personal opinion, I think that's probably what happened to Tiger a little bit back in the day, is when this information started coming out. I think he was chasing, what we call the unicorn, and he was chasing to be zeroed out. And I think that's potentially why he lost a little bit of that touch and feel that he's always been so great. I think now, with his game now, I think he's kind of gone back to just being able to really feel a shot, and he's just really good at having that path with his face. So that's kind of my answer on what you should have for optimal face and path numbers.
Alex,
yes.
Would that be something good we could use with data margins to put in that 8 as the top? And yeah,
correct. Yes. So we have a feature in our software called data margins, and Tamsin, you're on it. Thank you for that. I can get going down these rabbit holes and never come out of them. So with data margins, what you can do is I can create a margin. So for example, I can say in here, let me put in 7 iron, and I can add a parameter. So let's say I want my club path. And now I want my club path to be no more than 8. Oops, sorry. Let's do between 4 and 8. So if I add this parameter now and I go back into my session, if I set my margin 4 and 8, and I am outside of that margin, the data parameter will automatically come up red. So it's really good for quick reference. You can set these, and you can do it with any parameter: spin, loft, face, whatever you like. So that parameter, every time I hit a shot, I can be on the range. I look down. If it's green, I'm good. I know what that feeling was. If it's red, I know that I have to make an adjustment. So it's a really cool, it's a cool feature to have in the applications, and you can do that with any of the units on FSGolf. So you can see there on my data table that it's red, and then if I also go to my regular table, it's also red. So you can see I had, out of the 5 shots I hit, 2 were in the green and 3 were in the red. So great feature there with data margins. And like I said, you can use them with any data parameter across the board. Any questions so far? I'm not looking at the chat, so I don't know what you guys got.
Alex, I have another question for you because everyone's really quiet. How would you do that per student profile?
Yeah, so the data margin is stored. So right now I'm in my FlightScope account, and I create a data margin, and that data margin gets kind of stored to that player profile. So when you come back to that player, that margin will be held. If I then log in with it, let's say I log in with Tamsin, she's getting a lesson, I can create her margins, and they will be stored into her profile. So when I bring her back into a session, her margins will be stored. And you can turn them on and off as you deem. I mean, I can come back in here and turn them off, and then they're gone. So it's up to you whether you have them on or off. But it is a great tool to use with your players.
Cool. And Alex, while we're looking at this is obviously iOS view. We've now got FSGolf for PC software. Would it look more or less the same?
Yeah, it's going to look, the functionality of how you move the screens is slightly different because it's on a PC, but the screens look exactly the same. So what you've seen here, you're going to see on the PC software. We also have this for Android tablet and phone. So you can use it with either or. We also have added the integration of, especially for indoor use, of the RCT ball, the Titleist RCT ball. You can see here in my session on the top, I have the RCT selected. What that ball does is, if you're using it indoors, for those of you who have a FlightScope, indoors you have to use a metallic dot on the golf ball so that we can accurately register spin at that short of a distance. With the RCT, it eliminates the use of that metallic dot. So you can basically hit a premium ball and not have to put any metallic stickers on it in an indoor environment. So any other questions? If not, I'm going to probably dive in. I'm going to dive into the D plane a little bit, because I know that's
I do have one question for you. Is there anywhere that you can see example data from other coaches?
So we don't publicate other coach data, but we do have something called reference charts, and I'll share those with Tamsin so you can share with the group. But in the reference charts, we have several things. We have optimal comparisons to tour players, PGA and LPGA. So kind of what throughout the bag, what their averages are, club speed, launch angle, spin rate, club path, all that good stuff. And then we also have a chart based on handicap. So kind of where your numbers would be depending on your handicap. And then we have all the definitions of all the data parameters we provide, and then a graph on speed and acceleration profile. And we can share that with you. If you do our e-learning platform, you'll also get that as an attachment once you sign up or once you start going through the course.
Alex, sorry, I just wanted, when we were talking videos, we didn't talk anything about drawing on the videos, which a lot of coaches like to do.
Yes. So in the video, I'll go back in here to this video that I have here. So on the top right-hand corner, we have our drawing tools. So I can draw lines, I can do circles on either of these videos. And then on the bottom left, you'll see record a lesson. If I press that, it will record my voice as well as any functions that I do on this screen. And then I can quickly airdrop or share it to my customer via email. So you basically can record a lesson right there on the range and send it straight to your student.
Thank you. If you're going to go deep into D-plane, I just want to make sure we just touch on challenges and skills still as well.
Yeah, let's do that now before we go into, yeah, unless anybody has any questions. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions. So challenges is a small portion of our skills app that we've added into FS Golf. We are going to bring our entire skills platform into FS Golf. That's just going to take a little bit of time. But in challenges, you basically have three options. You can do a PGA challenge where you go up against like PGA Tour level numbers or LPGA Tour level numbers. So if I, for example, select this. So what I can do here is for the club that I have selected, like here I have a pitching wedge, I have to hit the PGA Tour averages. So depending on how I do hitting each individual one of those data parameters is how I would score in this particular challenge. And you can play it with multiple players. So it's pretty neat to be able to just get on there and see if you can match up with what the tour averages are. Then you have the range competition. This is more of like set up as like a cricket game, a dark cricket game. And so if I start this, I have 250 points. The player that gets that reduces their score to 0 the fastest and the least amount of shots would be the winner. So it's kind of like a dark game. And again, you can play with multiple players. And then the last but not least would be our long drive competition, which here you'll have multiple players hit their shots, and it's basically trying to see who will hit the furthest drive. So those are our three challenges within the app. We are going to be adding skills. Let me see if I can pull up skills for you guys. I might not have it on. I don't have it on this iPad. But the skills app, it kind of looks very similar to this app as far as setting up the session goes. But in the skills app, you can do several things. You can do complete combines that are already set up for you. And the player will hit, shots from 20 yards to 240 yards, and then you get an assessment at the end. Or you can create your own custom game. So how I've used it in the past with players is, let's say you have a new player that comes to you, it's their first time with you, and you just kind of want to assess their game, where they're at. What I would recommend is you put them on the complete combine. It's going to take them anywhere between 45 minutes to like an hour and 15 minutes. It's a lot of shots. And they're going to hit every club in the bag. And at the end, it's going to give you yardage bands. So kind of green, yellow, and red. So what you'll be able to know quickly is what yardage bands or what clubs you need to work on. So they might tell you, hey, this player is really good from 150 to 180, but from 180 to 200, they're lacking. So then you can start to develop your teaching or fitting program based on, those areas that they're a little weak in. And the nice thing is that you can continue doing that throughout your program to see how they're improving in those challenges. We also have the tour combine, which is very similar to the complete combine. It's just a little more difficult. The targets are a little tighter. They have to be a little more precise, but then they'll be compared to, their numbers will be compared to what the PGA Tour averages are within each yardage band. So for example, if they're hitting from 150 to 180 and the average tour, distance to pin on tour from that distance, let's say is 18 feet, it'll compare them to that. So they'll see if, are they averaging inside of that or outside of that? And then, it's really good to just, if they want to compare themselves to the best. So that is the skills application. And all of our applications, FS Golf, FS Skills, come with the systems. That's free of charge. With the X3 and the Mevo Plus, you also get, if you purchase a unit now, you get the 10 courses with E6 that you own for a lifetime. And that is simulated golf that you never have to pay a subscription on.
Alex, on skills, is there a combine for younger players, like by age group or?
So there isn't. The complete combine and the tour combine are set up I think it's like 200 or 20 to 240. If you wanted to make your own, we have the option of building a custom game, and there you can create up to 99 targets, and you can make the target as easy as you want, as hard as you want, as big as you want, as small as you want. So you can, we call it build a custom game. You can literally build your own games. I know a lot of instructors that I have a good friend of mine over here, John Hughes. He creates he has a John Hughes challenge, and he has a junior challenge, and then he has one that's for a little bit better player, and he'll just run his players through that. I think his is like 15 targets. Maybe only takes him about 20-30 minutes, and he has them do that before every session that they come in. So you can customize it 100% to your needs.
Thank you. There's no other questions for now, so you can
continue. So let's just wanted to give you guys a little bit of information on the D plane. I'm going to go to the D plane screen here. So for those of you that maybe aren't aware of the D plane and what it is, the D plane stands for the descriptive plane. And there was a gentleman back in the day, I don't know, like late 1990s, maybe even potentially early 2000s. His name was Theodore Jorgensen, and he was a scientist that worked on the Manhattan Project. And the Manhattan Project was the project that created the atomic bombs. So like a super smart engineer, scientist guy. And he got very involved or very interested in the golf swing. And so he kind of started going down this road, and he created, or he wrote a book about golf and the golf swing. And in that book, he talked about this descriptive plane, or different vectors that basically created a golf shot. And so what the descriptive plane talks about is basically there's let's call it 6 entities to this. So there's more than that, but there's 6 basic ones. If you're looking at the D plane from the side, you have what we call, dynamic loft, angle of attack, and those 2 vectors create an angle called spin loft. And then if you looked at it from the side, from face on or from down the line, you would have club path and face to path or face to target. And then if you looked at it holistically, you would also see horizontal swing plane and vertical swing plane. So long story short, the descriptive plane basically is describing exactly what a shot does. So if I hit a push draw, there's certain things that are going on with the D plane that are making that ball curve, and it's mainly the vectors within that D plane. So I'll give you guys an example. I'm going to grab 2 markers here. So if we were looking at the D plane from the face and path side, so let's say I had, actually, let's start with this side view. Let's start with this. So I have my dynamic loft and my angle of attack. And I told you guys that these 2 vectors create an angle, which we call spin loft. So in theory, the more I open these 2 vectors, the more I open this spin loft angle, the more spin I should generate. And the more I close this angle, this spin loft, the less spin I'll generate. So I'll give you an example. A long driver is trying to really get this spin loft as tight as possible, because they're trying to hit, nukes that have no spin on it. They're trying to launch it high with no spin and just go forever. The problem with that is that they also hit it all over the map, right? All left and right. They can hit it very far, but they can also have a lot of inaccuracies. Whereas a tour player is probably looking to maybe hit, they're trying to get the spin loft a little wider because they want to have a little more control and they want to be able to hit fairways. So if we looked at this for a long driver, their angle of attack is, their dynamic loft, they're trying to get at, like, let's say 4 to 6 degrees. And dynamic loft is just the loft of the club presented at impact. And then their angle of attack, they're trying to hit up on the ball. So they're trying to probably hit like 10 up. So they're trying to reduce these two vectors and this angle. And so what happens is that the tighter that this vector gets, these vectors get, sorry about the screen going in and out, but the tighter these vectors get, the more face and path are going to have a huge effect on how the ball curves. So if you think about it, let's say I have a face and path, and now I'm going to point it this way. Let's say I have a club path of 0 and my face is 0. So I'm perfectly straight. Well, it doesn't really matter what my angle of attack and my dynamic loft are. That ball is going to rise through those vectors and come back down. It's not going to have much curve. But now the moment that I start to change, let's say my club path is 10 right and my face is 10 left, the more I tilt this plane, these vectors, the more spin axis I'm going to get, which is why it's really easy to curve a driver, but it's not that easy to curve a lob wedge. And the reason for this is because the vectors are so wide open with a lob wedge that it would take so much angular difference in my face and path to be able to tilt that spin axis. So I really got to have some massive face and path to get that tilted so that I have left or right spin axis. But with a driver or a long driver, this is so tight that minimal differences in face and path are going to create massive curvature on the golf ball. And we haven't even started to talk about gear effect. We haven't even started to talk about bulge and roll on a driver. So you can see that you can really go down these rabbit holes with a lot of this information. Not that you need to overwhelm your clients with any of that information, but I think it's good for you guys to understand, what happens to why the ball does something in the air and being created by the D plane. So I know that was kind of a lot of information. But I would just challenge you guys to really just start diving into the D plane and what it does and how it affects your trajectories. And you can literally simplify it by starting with face to path and club path, and then angle of attack and dynamic loft. I'm not sure if any of you guys follow an instructor called Chris Como. You probably know he worked with Tiger, he's worked with Bryson, a bunch of guys, and he's a Ping ambassador. And he does a lot of research on just the golf swing and what the golf ball does. And I think it was yesterday or the day before, he was talking about this particular shot that players try to reproduce, which is basically it's an open face lob shot, like a flop shot, but it's a flop shot that launches really high, hits and has a lot of spin, which is very tough to do. I mean, you can hit high flop shots, but typically they're kind of dead. They don't have much spin on them. They kind of just land and they'll just kind of sit there. Well, this shot that they were trying to reproduce, with Ping, they have a machine. It's called an Enzo machine, and all these high speed cameras and stuff. And so they were hitting these shots, and what they found was that with this high trajectory flopper with a lot of spin, what they found is that the club would basically hit the ground first and then it would bounce into the golf ball. So what ended up, I guess the outcome was that they were producing a shot that had a ton of spin loft, and so it was creating a ton of spin. And he talked about something called the spin loft mountain. And that is basically where the more you open this angle, yes, in theory, the more spin you're going to get, but there's a peak to where when this angle gets actually too wide, too open, you actually start going the other way, because now you're hitting the ball with not so much of a descending blow. It's more of like the ball just kind of like hydroplanes on the face. So you don't generate enough spin. So he calls it the spin loft mountain. There's a certain point of no return where even if you open this all you can, you're not going to actually produce a lot of spin. So that's just one of those things that I find interesting in the information, and obviously we can measure that stuff. So questions?
I don't have any
I
more
don't-
questions, Alex.
Okay. I don't know how much time we have left, but I'm happy to go as long as you guys want me to.
We've got 3 minutes, so I think
Okay.
we can wrap it up, and we can always do another session again based on the feedback from today. We have one message in the chat box that says fantastic information. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was great. From our side, just a reminder, Albert and I are in 4 Ways, Johannesburg. We have an office in Stellenbosch, Cape Town. If you'd like to demo any of what we've just discussed, chat to us, or we can try and come out to you, or we've got other locations we can try and help you out with and send you to. So yeah, we're here for you. And if you have any questions after this that you've thought about, you're welcome to mail them to me. I put my email address in the chat. So if you want to grab it quickly, and then I can always chat to Alex and make sure we get you an answer. Yeah, I think that was a really great session, Alex. I think that's all from us.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm happy to do it again if you guys have any specific questions. I love this stuff, so I'm happy to do it anytime.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Yes, just from our side, Team FlightScope, thanks so much for your insight. We really appreciate it. All of the best, and I'm sure you're going to get a lot of questions coming in soon. So yeah, we're looking forward to that, and we're also looking forward to a future session with you guys again. So yeah, thanks to you. Thanks also for all the pros that came to watch. We really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.